The Bible. It's 66 books of history, stories, letters, and poetry that fit together to form God's one big story. The epic adventure of how He created us and loves us so much that He made a way to rescue us. As we travel through the Bible, from Genesis to Revelation, we discover people who met God and found their lives changed forever. And now for an amazing story, inspired by the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 17.
When Moses died, Joshua led the Israelites into the land that God had promised them. And after Joshua, a series of judges guided God's people. But they were still faced by enemies on all sides. The Israelites noticed that these enemy nations had impressive kings that led them into battle, so they decided they had to have a king of their own. It wasn't enough that God was in charge, so they begged God for a king, and God gave them one. A man named Saul. So while Saul was handsome and wore splendid armor into battle, he never listened to God, so God chose another king, a young shepherd named David. And even though David had been picked to be the next king, Saul was still ruling Israel, which meant David was still watching over his father's sheep near Bethlehem.
The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
As David plucked out a tune on his harp, a lion burst out of the brush and grabbed one of his sheep. He raced after the lion and threw himself in front of it.
You shall not pass!
David freed the sheep, and when the lion turned to attack him, he wrestled it by the mane down to the ground and killed it. Now this may sound like a big deal, but it was actually David's older brothers who were chosen to follow King Saul into battle against the Philistines, which meant that David was going to stay behind, watching the sheep.
See you later, sheep boy. We're off to be heroes.
But the battle didn't go well for King Saul and the Israelites. They camped out across the valley of Elah from the Philistine army. And every morning and evening for 40 days, a giant soldier named Goliath came out to taunt them.
I dare Israel to send a man down to fight against me. If he's able to kill me, we'll be your slaves. But if I win and kill him, you will be our slaves.
Not a single Israelite dared to march out and face Goliath as he towered over them with the heavy armor and the deadly spear.
Eek!
Back in Bethlehem, David's father Jesse wanted to know how his sons were doing. He called David out from the field.
Take some grain and some bread and cheese to your brothers. Bring me back word about them.
I'm on it, Dad.
So early the next morning, David headed out. When he finally reached the army camp, all the men were lining up for battle.
Anyone seen my brothers? Eliab, Shammah, Abinadab.
David raced along the battle lines until he found his brothers.
Eliab,
Why are you here, twerp?
Dad wants to know how you're doing.
Fine. We're big heroes.
But even as Eliab spoke, Goliath marched out. David stared at the massive warrior with his iron muscles. His footsteps seemed to shake the very earth.
Who's that?
Goliath.
I dare Israel to send a man down to fight against me.
David's brothers and the entire Israelite army scattered, fleeing back to the camp.
Hey, wait! This Philistine is bringing shame to Israel. He's mocking God.
David's brothers halted to glare at him.
You're proud and you hate what's good. You just come out to hang out and watch the battle.
What have I done now? Can't I even speak?
King Saul heard what David was saying and sent for him.
Your Majesty, don't let anyone lose hope because of that Philistine. I'll fight him.
King Saul nearly laughed as he stared at this young shepherd in a simple tunic.
You're too young. He's been a warrior since he was a boy.
When a lion or bear attacks my father's sheep, I strike it down. I'll do the same thing to this Philistine. The Lord has saved me from the lion and the bear, and He'll save me from this Philistine too.
Fascinated by David's confidence, the king decided to give him a chance.
Go, and may the Lord be with you.
King Saul even offered David his own armor and sword, but after trying it all on, David shook his head.
I can't go out there in all this armor. I'm not used to it.
The king gaped as David removed the armor and returned the sword.
But surely you need a weapon.
I know where to find one.
David took his wooden staff and went down the stream. There, he picked up smooth stones, turning them over in his hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
David placed the stones in the bag and took out his sling, made of heavy cord. Down in the valley, Goliath bellowed,
I dare Israel to send a man down to fight against me.
Taking a deep breath, David marched out to meet him. The giant Philistine smirked as he stomped toward David.
Why are you coming at me with sticks, huh? Do you think I'm only a dog? Woof woof. I'll feed you to the wild animals.
David stood his ground. Looking up, he cried out,
You are coming to fight against me with a sword, but I'm coming against you in the name of the one true God. The Lord will give me victory. Then the whole world will know there is a God in Israel. The battle belongs to the Lord.
Israelite pig.
Goliath rushed forward to attack, but David removed the stone from his bag and put it in the sling, and he whirled the sling as fast as he could and released the stone. The stone hurtled through the air and hit Goliath smack dab in the forehead.
Ah!
The giant swayed and toppled, hitting the ground like a thunderclap. For a moment, no one on either side dared to breathe. But when the Philistines saw that their hero was dead, they panicked and ran. And the Israelites rushed forward to chase them. That day, the Philistines were completely defeated, and King Saul could only stare at this young man who defeated the giant with only a stone.
Who are you?
I'm the son of Jesse from Bethlehem.
From that day on, King Saul called on David to serve him, and the young man became a warrior and leader through God's power and King Saul's willingness to give him a chance.